A very good evening, everyone. I am Fabrício Assunção from the Spiritist Society of Bournemouth. Welcome to tonight's talk, brought to you by the Spiritist Society of Bournemouth and Poole Christian Spiritualist Church. This talk is one of our fortnightly talks based on the psychological series of writing by the Spirit Joanna de Angelis. Joangela Spirit is the guide to our most famous living Spiritist medium, Divaldo Franco, and is the source of a large number of important Spiritist books published in many languages across the world. It's my great pleasure to give a warm welcome to our guest speakers, Daniel Santos. Daniel lives in Maryland, in the United States, where he leads the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. His talk tonight is on the subject of moral charity. Thank you very much for being with us tonight, Daniel. We look forward very much to your talk.
Thank you, Fabrício. Thank you, our friends from UK. It's a pleasure to be here in this psychological series from talks by Joanna de Angeli. I confess that when Fabrício has invited me to share, these teachings of the benefactor Joanna de Angeli, I was a little bit like, okay, what should I talk to? I know that Joanna de Angeli, this high-level spirit that has been helped us a lot in the Spiritist movement and also through the publications of books that give a different approach in the Spiritist literature. And we in the Spiritist movement, we used to call her the psychological spirit, isn't it? Because she go a little bit deep in the mind, in ourselves as a immortal spirit. So the topic of our discussion tonight, Fabrício, should I go on? I'm sorry.
Just before I hand it over to you, Daniel, I'm gonna go to Lawrence Saville.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah,
that's
yes,
all right.
Yes.
So, Lawrence, could you do the opening prayer for us, please?
I can indeed. Don't worry, Daniel. Absolutely fine.
Okay.
So if we could all just still our minds just for this time, leaving to one side all our cares, concerns, and hone in on that divinity that resides within each and every living thing. And as we join together in giving thanks for all that we have, let us not be blind to those dear ones who walk this life with us, to our animal friends, to the beauty and splendor and majesty of this world that has been created for us. And as we harmonize our vibrations together this night, to explore more our spirituality and to hear the words given to us from beyond that which we call death, but that which we know is a transition, a change, the caterpillar emerging into the butterfly. So let us all join together this night and listen and take what we can from this evening. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Lawrence. Now it's my great pleasure to hand it over to Daniel Santos for his talk on the subject of moral charity. Over to you, Daniel.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank our friend from UK. It's a pleasure to be here and to share these beautiful teachings that our benefactor, Joanna de Angeli, has brought to us through many books, especially through the psychological series that was psychographed by the Brazilian Spiritist medium, Divaldo Franco. So as I mentioned in my introduction, so we discuss a little bit about charity. And we know that when we talk about charity, we have this misconception that charity is giving material thing. Okay, we may, accept that, but Joanna comes and bring a different approach. Not only Joanna, but many great minds throughout humanity has touching this subject of charity, something that go beyond just provide material help to one another. So we decide to discuss a little bit and bring to our reflection the moral charity, or the conscious charity. We try to put the word charity in the right place. Because as I said before, we have been using this word and sometimes misleading our action. And sometimes we think that we are helping others by providing a material thing. But at the end of the day, the question is, what we are doing? Is this a movement that we do because it's through a result of our feelings, or is just like a projection of our persona, or the shadow, or the ego, as Joanna de Angelis bring this very well in her books. So to our discussion today, I would like just to bring a couple of information that we have been learned throughout humanity about the word charity. And I would like to start with this sentence. If we have to define charity, we would say that charity is love in action toward others. So the first one that has said this sentence, this phrase, was Poole. When Poole was writing to the Corinthians, and we can find this in his letter, epistle to the Corinthians, when he said that charity is love in action. So sometimes we may mix the word love and charity, but the reality is charity, love is the means that will define what charity is. So talking about Poole, we can say that in that beautiful letter that he wrote to the Corinthians, to the church in Corinthians, so we see that text that nowadays is even used in wedding in some special place to define love. But we may argue here because that text somehow is due to translations. We depends of the version of the Bible we get these texts. Some of those mention love, other mention charity. I believe that Poole wanted to really focus on charity, and so at some point in the text he mentioned, "And though I bestowed all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. Charity suffereth long, and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself. It's not puffed up." Right now, three things remain: faith, hope, charity. But the greatest of these is charity. And we can find more about this in the 1 Corinthians chapter 13. So here we stop a little bit to reflect upon this message that Poole has brought to us almost 2,000 years ago. And what Poole is trying to tell us here, that no matter how much knowledge we have, no matter how much money, good, or no matter how much alms giving we give to the poor, but at the end of the day, if we don't have this deep feeling sentiment of charity, nothing is nothing you gain with that, right? And so what Joanna de Angelis reflect upon this topic of charity. So one message that was psychographed by Divaldo Franco, Joanna says, "Keep in mind that charity in your actions must be the light that overcomes shadows." So now we are talking about. Now we have a different approach to understand from where this charity must come from. And she said that is a light that overcomes the shadow. What kind of shadow she's talking about? Of course, we don't have time here to go to all the psychological terminology and the study that Carl Gustav Jung has brought to us and Joanna de Angelis has adopted as a foundation for her stirred and to bring to us a new way to see life in general, the new way to see ourselves as a immortal spirit. So this shadow is pretty much that everything that is in our unconscious that we have is not aware of, but that drive us. The same way that our ego as well. We are not saying that those components of our psychic is bad. We are saying that what are we projecting to our society? What are we giving, what we are calling as chariot action? So this is a personal question that each one of us need to answer to our conscience. So, but let's keep in mind and let us move on in our analysis here about chariot according to Joanna de Angelis. So the way we're gonna bring this, we pick some of those information from those books that she has, especially the books that is part of her psychological series. We know that she has Divaldo has psychographed something around 16, 17 books only relate to the mind and how we should understand ourselves as this immortal spirit. And of course, she has other books. I believe by right now she has published over the 50, 60 something books that touch another subject. But moving on, so also in the Gospel according to Spiritism, codified by Allan Kardec, we have a chapter in that book that is entitled, Without Charity, There is No Salvation. And we ask ourselves, wow, a whole chapter about charity? Yes. And that was needed because when that book was put together in the 1800s, the main idea in that time is that without the church, there is no salvation. So the noble spirit, of course, together with the codified Allan Kardec, decide to rephrase that sentence, and that's what the banner, without charity, there is no salvation. We're going to try to argue here tonight and to make this analysis under the psychological view of Joanna de Angelis. What means to be a charitable person? And the question is, are we a charitable human beings or a charitable individual? So this is a question that is pertain to each one of us. So it's not something that we are here to judge. If we are doing your charitable work in your spirit center or in your spiritualist church, and if we are writing a check to help a foundation, non-profit organization, and if you consider this a charitable action, that's fine. That's fine because we have no authority to judge the action of others, but our own action, right? So in that same chapter in this book, there is a message by the spirit Francois Xavier. This is in chapter 7, when he finalized his message by saying, when charity becomes the rules of conduct for humans, they will conform their word and action to this maxim: do not do unto others what you would not want them to do unto you. Then all causes of dissensions will disappear, and with them the causes of do and was, which are actually those between people. Right? And we see a lot of this in our society, especially in the current moment that we are living in. The big challenge, the suffering, comes from relationship issues. This is present in our family, this is present in our workplace, this is present in our society, this is present in our spiritual institution. And what happened? So if we don't know how to deal with this by using this maximum that the Spirit has brought to us, and of course, he is pretty much remind us about what Jesus has said to us, the golden rule. In fact, Jesus, this is the golden rule that has been said for many millennia, even before Jesus, of course. So we cannot consider ourselves charitable because, as we mentioned at the beginning, it's not giving material thing, but also giving our understand, is exercise the self, as Joanna Judge mentioned. We are here to project ourself, but sometimes ourself is tainted by our egos and our shadows. And that is very clear what she has invited us to analyze when we read her books. So, and then she comes again, and we're going to bring Joanna Jangela a lot here because this is a psychological study of her work. And she said, charity is not just a theological virtue. Charity is not just a religious guideline. Charity is not a conditioning of faith. Charity is purely and simply a normal pattern of behavior. So let us stop, let us think about what she's saying here. So charity is a pattern of behavior. And we may ask, what is behavior? Well, behavior is the way we conduct ourselves toward one another, toward our society, even toward ourselves, how we analyze and we think about ourselves. So now, if this pattern of behavior is negative, so this is telling which stage we are in that moment. And we can expand this to the collective conscience, our planet. And we can see why we are still living a planet of trial and atonement, or expiation, as we say in Spiritism as well. So there is a cause that we are still experiencing all this. And the cause is that we need to do our inner journey. And we're going to see this as we move on in our presentation. So since we are in this planet, the planet Earth, beautiful planet, of course, is our home. We learn in the spiritualist literature that the level that we are right now is a level that evil still prevail. When we say evil, we are not saying that God's great evil, but is the product, the misunderstanding of our choices that will harm others. And this is just a moment in our evolution, and we will move on to the next level that probably is going to be a planet of regeneration where goodness will prevail, right? But right now, let's concentrate in the level that we are. We are in this level that, let me see the time, okay. We are in this level that we still have a lot of negative action, okay? And let's not be worried, because as we learn about ourselves and understand that we need to be more a charitable person, maybe we'll get there in the planet of regeneration. If not, we're going to be invited to go to another planet to help in the evolution of that planet, okay? So in this level that we are, the spirit of doing good things, or do goods always, is an exception, right? So right now, the sentiment of goodness is not spontaneous everywhere. We just need to sit down for like 1 hour in front of our TVs and turn on our local news, and we see that majority of the news is not good news, in the sense that, you know, people are helping one another, are respecting one another. We see more conflict and problems and suffering. than goodness out there. Then the reason for that is that, you know, we are still in this process of learning about ourselves. Also, we learned that our planet is inhabited by spirit indebted with the laws of cause and effect. Daniel, I don't believe it. That's okay. That's fine. You believe what you believe. But the invitation here is to do a deep analysis, and that's what Joanna just brings to us all the time in her psychological series, is that we need to analyze the feelings, our position before different situation, why we are going through this or that situation, you know, why when we help someone and we see that that person doesn't give anything in return, how we feel ourselves, right? And also we not have time to go to all the complexity of the human beings, but the reason is that for every effect there is a cause, you know, and we learn in Spiritism that for every intelligent effect there is an intelligent cause. So we need to take this very seriously and try to apply in our life so we can understand the complexity of the immortal spirit. So what is Joanna proposed? What her proposal for this topic of the moral chariot? You know, the moral chariot would be like the real chariot, not the ones that we understand by giving material things. So, so by reading her books, we learned that the main thing that she invites us to do is this moral transformation or inner transformation. Well, to do this moral transformation, we need to what? We need to know ourselves. That the same way we need to do this self-discovery. We need to dive inside of our psychic, our thought, our behavior, our emotion, and try to know why I'm behaving this way, why I'm going to this way, why I'm doing this. Is this a product of my persona? Is this the product of my ego? I'm gonna, or on Sunday, I'm gonna help the poor, or I'm going to a nursery home. So why are you doing that? You are doing this because you are a charitable person, or because we are trying to cover up some kind of, I would say, not guilt, you know, I don't want to say guilt, but something that bothers you and you don't know. Is this movement, this action that we are doing really a moral charity as understood by the great mind of our humanity? Let's see it. So, and at the end goal here is through this moral transformation, this self-discovery, we become what she says, the conscious beings. So we become the true self. You know, we know that our unconscious, it has those archetypes, as she mentioned, and also as brought by Carl Gustav Jung, that those archetypes is in fact pattern of behavior that is collected through experience of many reincarnation or lives and lives that we had before, that form this individual that we can call nowadays the spirit, us incarnate, you know. So, but the idea is to reach that level that we become full aware that everything we do, every thought we have has a period in itself. It's not something that will cover up a feeling or a guilt from our misdeeds from the past and even from this reincarnation as well. So in this book, and I have this book here that we here in the Spirit Society of Baltimore translate this book. Like I remember when this book was published about 15 years ago, I think. It was a great joy for us and very a challenge work to do. that mainly was done by Dr. Vanessa Saloni. In that time, she was the president of the Spirit Society of Baltimore. And in this book, Joanna, in her introduction, she brings this phrase that I would like to share with you. The experience of self-discovery allows the individual to identify his or her limit and dependencies, his true and false aspiration, ego tricks and impostures of illusion. I'll stop here and you can read again. I know that it's very deep what she's saying here, but we are talking about experiences. So we learned that for us to have this moral transformation, we need to go to experiences in our life. And this experience could be, we cannot achieve this self-discovery by stay home. By stay home, we go to the top of a mountain and be meditating over there. We need to go and meet other people. So in order for us to start to learn about ourselves and to dive in our own issues. So, and we need to make sure that we know very well, what is come from our true self, where is the work of the ego or the shadow. And for this, we need to have experience, right? So otherwise, everything becomes a imposter's illusion. What this means that sometimes, I have to do my charitable work. I need to help these people. But we need to ask the question, is this true? Is this a true feeling? Or this is just something that, you think by doing this, you're expecting something in return. If there is any expectation when we help someone, then we are not yet in the level of doing what we call moral charity. We should be able, that's the ideal, we should be able to do things without expectation or anything in return. But until there, we're gonna collecting experience by putting ourselves out there, by helping one another, and at any means that we can. If you just wanted to help in the material level, that's fine. Nobody's here to judge you. Nobody's here to judge you, right? So once we do this, slowly we will achieve what she calls the moral transformation. We will do what we are calling here the moral charity. Okay, so this is a beautiful invitation, very profound, but it's another way to see what kind of work or action we are doing in our spirit center, in our spiritualist church, toward one another, in our society, and then we think that we are really doing the charity as preached, as said by Poole. And Joanna helped us very well to understand what he's trying to say when you read that in the beginning of our presentation. And also, we will understand how, why, we learn, we have that banner, without charity, there is no salvation. Which kind of salvation Allan Kardec was talking about? Salvation from whom? From ourselves. Salvation from the domination of our shadows. That is what we are right now, right? Is that archetypes that is still buried in our unconscious that project our behavior, and sometimes we even don't know why we have those kind of behavior. So it's very important for us to analyze this teaching that she is bringing to us. So I would like just to change a little bit here and talk about the awakening of our consciousness. And we may ask, Daniel, what this having to do with charity? Well, the topic of discuss is the moral charity. So in order to understand what this moral or consciousness Chariot means, we need to understand that we are not yet fully awake. When we say awake, it's not the opposite of sleeping. I mean, the physical body. We are talking about our consciousness. We are talking about our dramas. We talk about our behavior. We talk about our conflicts that we still don't know why we have. And we are still trying to understand ourselves. And for us to become the true charitable person, we need to pay attention on this. So that's very important. Joana de Angeli comes and put the bar very high. So we have all this information that has been taught, we have been learned from ancient Greeks and early Christianity, and with Spiritism now, but becomes very abstract sometimes. And we interpret that just as we normalize in a material level. And what Joana is bringing to us is that we need to bring this to the deep consciousness and means of what Jesus brought to us, what the great minds in humanity has brought to us, and live it, right? And sometimes we wanted to do the good things, but we speak well, we do things well out there, but inside of our consciousness, our conscience, we have like a nightmare of conflict, right? So let us understand that, in order for us to awake our consciousness, we need to have experience in life, right? And experience will provide us with the self-discovery. We have mentioned this before. We cannot dive in and learn about ourselves if we don't go and meet other people, if we don't live in society. So this experience that will lead us to our self-discovery, it will help only if we look at other people, if we live with other people. And then we learn how they deal with life, how by helping them, for example, help with their pain and suffering, by looking the situation that they're living, so that can be named Chariot, but not in the true sense of Chariot, but will be a mean that can help us to what? To think more about our own life. And this is the process of awareness that will generate the transformation within ourselves. So, in another word, by going toward others, by acting in the area to help others, by being a charitable person, not the true charity, because we are exercise this action to help one another. Sometimes our help has a second agenda, or we are expecting something. In this process of experiencing the relationship with others in different level, will somehow help us to generate this transformation and the moral transformation that will help us to free ourselves from the shadows one day. Okay? So Joana is just bring this to us, and we add that charity over there because it's the way we interpret that. If we pay attention, it's the mechanism where we can take, took in consideration for us to one day call ourselves a charitable person in the true meaning of this moral charity that we are discussing here. So in this book, I don't believe this book is in English. I don't think so. It's called Momento de Consciência, psychographed by Divaldo Franco, of course, and Joana de Angeli. Probably, if they translate, would be moments of awareness or conscious moment. I don't know. So there is a passage that I think is very important for us to understand what this awareness means. And she says, this awareness is not of the intellectual nature or nor activity of the brain mechanism. It is the driving force that comes from within. It is conquered from the evolutionary experiences to externalize in the form of actions. And we wanted to make a bridge here. externalize in the form of action is the same thing to externalize in our charitable approach to others. Okay? We can interpret like this way. Of course, we can use in any form of action we have. But at the end of the day, is the relationship that we have with one another. Could be in the material level, could be in the mental level. But she is telling here, that's not product of our physical brain. It's not a mechanism of the brain. It's not. She's invited us to dive in. This is the driving force. Well, this driving force is conquered through many experiences we have in this life, but also from previous lifetime. We have discussed it before. In the level that we are in the planet of the planet Earth, it is a planet of trial and expiation. We are somehow in debt because we made decision that was not according to God's law. That's what we call law of cause and effect, right? Also, she mentioned consciousness can be trained through the exercise of high moral values, which aims at the good in others and consequently the good in ourselves. Wow, this is very important. So, can be trained. So that's why we mentioned that we need to reach out. We need to reach out. Outreach program. Please volunteer. Because by doing that, we expect that we'll do this analysis and we'll learn what it is really the true charity that Poole has invited us to do. Right. So in this book, Plenitude is another book in the psychological series of Joanna D'Angelo. There is a chapter about altruism, and altruism has all to do with moral charity. Without altruism, so you cannot call moral charity. And we know that altruism is the practice of disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others. I got this definition from the dictionary, so it's not mine. So she said in the first couple paragraphs of the chapter 6 of this book, she says, altruism is a living lesson in charity, a high expression of ennobled love that opens the door to action. Without it would be pointless. So here is another information. The moral charity, the true charity, cannot happen without altruism, because this altruism is the living lesson in charity. So, and we mentioned that before that, if we are doing something and expecting something in return or some kind of reward, I think we are missing the point. We are missing the point. So that was her invitation, to do things with this altruistic behavior. Altruism is the very love taught by Jesus himself, the kind that practices selfless to focus on the welfare of others, forgetting all wrongs in order to expand by means of aspirations relate to progress, order, and happiness. The antithesis of selfishness is heal the wound of the soul caused by it and foster comprehensive health. So we didn't mention, but we learned that the main problem of our society, or that the obstacle for our progress, is pride and selfishness. We have learned this, that is well described in the Spirit's book, especially in the third part of the moral laws. Kardec asked about what is the main problem that stop progress to happen, and the Spirit answered pride and selfishness, right? And this is in the law of progress, if I'm not mistaken. So Joanna is saying here that the antithesis of that the altruism is the antithesis of that, and will help to heal the wound of the soul. So, of course, this chapter is a beautiful chapter. We have a series talks in this book that was done by Leonardo Vieira from the Spirit Society of Baltimore. the highlight of this book is available in our YouTube channel, the Spirits Network. So you may check if you are more interested to learn about this chapter. So I would like to bring a little bit about moral laws, because we cannot talk about Chariot without go back and look what we understand by moral law. In the third part of the Spirit's book, Allan Kardec lays out, he codified all this information by didactically put the divine laws in 10 moral laws. Okay, of course, there is the natural law that he discussed as well, and then they go to the moral laws, and the last one is the law of justice, love, and charity. And so in that part, in the question in the Spirit's book 886, Allan Kardec asked the Spirit, what is the true meaning of the word charity as Jesus understood it? So now we are collecting what they understand by Jesus. And of course, Jesus didn't say that, but the enlightened spirit that has more knowledge than us, because they are a little bit advanced. So they respond or reply, benevolence toward everyone, indulgence toward the imperfection of others, and forgiveness for offenses. So if you forget this, you just need to remember this acronym BIF, B-I-F. Okay, so we use this a lot in our explanation here in our society. So we need to activate our BIF. What is this? Benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness. So we see here that the enlightened spirit did the answer. You need to go and help the poor. You need to go and, to nursery homes or do that. No, because that is our obligation. To help one another is an obligation. It's not a charitable thing. It's obligation. The same way that, be a parent is not, an option. It's an obligation. If you have children, it's an obligation to be the parent. But now, because of the law of the free will, not the law, the free will, so we may not do what we're supposed to do it. So, and just for us to put it in a different context, so we create a molecule here. So people sometimes they say, oh, I'm sick, I wanted to treat my disease, the disease of the physical body. But if we think about the moral disease, so we have a molecule. So this is a pill that has three molecule over there connect with each other, each one benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness. So use this remedy when you feel that your relationship is a little bit spoiled, okay? So, or sick. So try to utilize what Jesus has understood by charity, that is this benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness. So also in this topic of the divine laws or moral laws, so in this book, Diretrizes para o Êxito, it's not in English, I'm sorry. I hope it's going to be, and probably if we translate something like Guidelines for Success, something like that. In the chapter 3, what Joanna de Anjou understand by benevolence, for example. And she said that, the definition that she brings in this book about benevolence is a feeling, and that was a free translation that I did. I put as a feeling, sentiment of deep love to your neighbor and of the understand for his or her action. Well, I think the highlight here is the deep love. Deep love is a sentiment of deep love towards someone. So that's the invitation. But here's the question. We only give what we have, right? If we don't have self-love, if we are not yet in the level to to accept who we are with all the imperfection, we cannot give this. We cannot give benevolence. We cannot give indulgence. We cannot forgive. So that's why Joana de Angeli, when she come and bring all this teaching, she asks us to fix ourselves first, to understand ourselves first, before we go out and help others. Of course, she always say that by going out and help others, we help us to fix ourselves. So we can do this by do a deep diving in ourselves and learn about what kind of feeling and sentiment we have towards someone or toward a situation, and try to work on that in a way to become more effective in our actions, right? So we almost finished. I hope I'm not go over the time. I just would like to bring a couple of slides before we pass the word to Fabrizio. In chapter 15 of this book, The Gospel According to Spiritists, there is a message from a spirit called Sister Rosaria that she mentioned about moral charity. And she said, moral charity consists in giving support to one another, and it is what you, us, practice the least. And she said, believe me, there is a great merit in knowing how to keep quiet and let a more ignorant person speak. This is yet another kind of charity. So we see here that the enlightened minds doesn't talk about charity in the material level. They put charity as a very high level, like moral, in the conscience, She continues saying, knowing how to turn a deaf ear when a mocking word escapes the mouth accustomed to scorn, not pay any attention to the smirk of disdain that greets your entrance among persons who often wrongly think they are above you, whereas in the spirit's life, the only true life, they are sometimes far from it. These are meritorious acts, not of humility, but of charity. So there is a difference here. It's not humility, but charity when we zip it up, when we don't revenge. Because not pay attention to someone else's wrongs portray moral charity. So again, this is another way to see this topic of moral charity and to ask ourselves, are we really doing this proposal that Joana brings to us when we are using the word charity? So this is a question. This is a personal question that you may ask yourself. We should ask ourselves too, and working to become, a really true charitable person. So just for us, I believe that you have seen this before, but this is like a conversation between a master and his apprentice, a student, and the apprentice was very curious to know what is the secret of happiness. And the master responded, not to argue with idiots, And the apprentice said, Master, I completely disagree that this is the secret. And the master replied, yes, you're right. So this is for us to laugh a little bit. So sometimes not respond maybe is the best action. Of course, we need to analyze the situation. We need to analyze all angles to see what's the best approach we need to have. But this is for us to think about it. We know that we are living a time that disagreement is very high, is in high stake right now. Our planet is completely divided. We have problems in all sectors of our society, and it seems that be charitable with one another is lacking, right? So for our reflection, the lack of understanding will generate disagreement. And this understanding of one another of the situation is the key aspect for us to have a balanced life, right? So, but the understanding happened because before we disagree, there was something that was not well done, that our communication, as the name is saying over there, communication, a action that is in common, is not the same action, but is a common action. If we have a good common action, we will have more chance to understand one another. And once we understand one another, this will lead us to what? Tolerance, the BIF, and of course, charity, because BIF, according to Jesus, means charity, right? As he understood. So, but what we see nowadays is that disagreement has been everywhere and has been destroyed relationship and has been caused a lot of depression in our society, in our families. And sometimes we are not stopping to do this self-discovery that Joanna brings to us, invite us to do. She doesn't bring, she invited us to do it. Okay. And so I was curious to know about the disagreement. So I don't know if you know, but Google has this tool search that called the Ngram Viewer. So you can go to Google, you can type any word over there, and the search was showing how many times, or the percentage of how much time this word was used. It was used in printed books, search in the internet, in speech, and Google did that after they have scanned 30 million books. And this can go back to 1500 until the year 2019. So I was curious. I said, okay, let me see in the last 200 years of humanity, so how many times this word disagreements appear. And you can see here that from the 1900 until 2019, let me see if I can point here so you can see from here until 2019, the word disagreement has been printed many times. We have an increase in this word disagreement. Well, Daniel, you may ask it, Daniel, but why did this happen? I don't know. I can speculate. I think that as our society become, our laws is better implemented, so the freedom of speech, also increase. So people tend to express themselves more. So we can also argue that the word disagreement is there because people really don't want to understand the other side and is argue that their side is the better. So I don't know why it's increasing. So maybe you can help by put your comment in the chat, and I'd be glad to read and to learn more about what is your interpretation of this increase of the word disagreement in printed material, in speech, in all kind of information that has been published in the last 200 years. Okay, you can use these search tools for any word you want. You can put your name, you can put anything you want. They're gonna give to you a projection in how much that word has been used. Okay, Albert Einstein says, peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. Beautiful quote. I wanted to bring this so you can reflect. And I would like to finalize with this sentence by Joanna that is printed in the book, The Conscious Beings, when she says, conscious individuals are austere, but not grooming, cheerful, but not flippant, benevolent, but not consenting to error. Conscious individuals assist and empower those in need and then go on their way without expecting anything in return. this conscious individual would be the true charitable person. And that's where we want to go. That is the invitation that Joanna de Angeli, this enlightened spirit that has helped in the codification of the book, of the codification of Spiritism, and also has brought these beautiful teachings, psychological series, through the hands of the medium, the Brazilian medium, Divaldo Pereira Franco in Brazil. So I hope I was able to bring a different perspective of this topic of charity to you. Of course, we are all here learning about, and I will stop here and call Fabricio and Larry to see if we have any question and all the information that we can share and discuss.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much for your reflections. It's a lot for us to be reflecting there, isn't it?
Yes.
When we talk about Joanna, there is no way you can say, okay, I can just read the book. No, you cannot just read the book. You have to read the book and reflect a lot of what's actually just read on the book. And
it's a masterpiece, it's a textbook. So that's what we say.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. One of the insights that you brought up here, and I was reflecting myself, is when you're doing charity, it's important that you understand not just the action of you doing the charity, but what is actually in your heart to do when you're doing that charity. Because if you're doing charity to cover something up, or if you're doing charity just to kind of trade with God to say, well, if I do charity, I'm going to kind of reserve myself a good place in heaven. That is like you're trading, it's like you're doing, you're actually negotiating with God, right? And that is not true charity. Exactly. But then when you're doing charity, but your heart is full of charitable feelings, that is real charity, and that is what you actually said to us all along, is what Joanna Jones defined as a moral charity.
Exactly. The intention is the key, and you said right, yes. But the intention is a reflection of the level that we are as a mortal spirit, right? And all the archetypes that is still bubbling in our consciousness, But that's, thank you for the clarification.
Cool. So we do have some questions that is popping up here on Facebook. I'm going to go through the questions, and then if anyone here want to ask any question, can you write it up, the question on your comments on here, and I can pick it up and read it out to Daniel. Our first one.
Sorry, Lawrence? You've seen it. I thought you might have missed it. You've seen it. That's fine.
I just saw it. It's actually is from our lovely Kirsten, Daniel's wife.
Ooh. We didn't plan on that.
Daniel, you're in trouble now.
Now I'm in trouble, and I regret to have sent the link to her. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's always good.
So, Kirsty say, it is so easy to get caught up in our own world and forget to be kind and moral. How can one stay focused on being morally correct?
Well, it's a very good question, Kirsten. And I think that is the challenge, isn't it? Is to achieve that focus and be sure that everything we do is inside of these golden rules. And I think one of the suggestions I always give when people always come and ask, okay, so you need to behave like Jesus, what Jesus would do in this situation, is apply the golden rules. Is, okay, so if I was in that person position, how would like to be, assisted, and of course, we need to be sincere with ourselves. We are not pure spirit yet. So although this is the goal, we're going to be fluctuating, in our life, especially in the level that we are, in this understanding of what is right and wrong.
Excellent. Lawrence, I think the thing here I can look at goes really quick. I don't think I can see any other question there. Can you see any other question there?
I can't see any questions, but there's some lovely comments coming up.
Some comments. If you wanted to read the comment, just for us to reflect.
Okay, so I find that those who are morally charitable are so subtle and natural with it that sometimes we barely take notes of it.
Correct. And I think this go exactly, Fabrice, what you just said at the beginning, that the intention, I mean, you do because you do it. It's like there is this beautiful moment with Mother Teresa when someone asked her, why are you doing this work? Why are you helping these people? And she just said, because, that's what I wanted to do. And she was not expecting anything in return. I think that is the key. I think, when we do, is what Joana de Angelis beautiful describe this charitable person in the chapter 6 of the book Plenitude, when she talk about the altruism, the altruist person. I think if you combine that, what Jesus understand by Chariot is what we are discussing here, is the end goal of our evolution, pretty much, to become like a pure spirit one day.
Yeah, another comment here said, we can get so lost in our own shadow, and it feels so natural because it's an integral part of us. It is so easy to fall back into negative patterns and behaviors.
Very true. And here is my reflection on this, Fabrice and Larry, is that we should not fight against it. We should learn how to manage, because this is part of us. This was, as we learned with Joana, is a collection of experience that has defined us where we are nowadays. We learn in Spiritism that we are created simple and ignorant, but with the tendency to perfection. In this journey that we do from that moment we are considered simple and ignorant, is on us, is a lonely a journey that we do. But we don't do this without others. And then we make choices. And then these choices will be forming, being part of our archetype that, Carl Gustav Jung called the shadows. And Joana de Angelis enforced this very well in her psychological series. And this become us and is embedded in our subconscious. So what do? We need to get to know those image that we have created, those patterns that we have. And that's define our behavior, the shadow. And then we discuss, and I remember I participate in some of the study that Marlon has done in your group, and he beautifully described, the shadow, the ego, the self, and what I mean, all this kind of thing that is beautiful. And he did a very excellent job. And when I have time, always I enjoy to listen what he has to bring, because for me, he's really very good in interpret what Joana de Angelis brings to us. Thank you. Yeah, I agree with that, Kirsten.
So another question that is coming out here from our friend Bob Williams. He says, politicians and society in general promote an insistence on people's rights, on gaining and keeping wealth and winning against competitors. Do you agree that these pressures in modern society fight against benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness, and against moral charity?
Very good question. Thank you, Bob, for participating and for posing your question. Well, it's very hard for us to judge what other people is thinking, but of course, we can analyze the situation because we are in bed in the society. We are part of this society. And when we talk about politicians, when we talk about those that are in position of power, we need to do analysis as a collective consciousness. We cannot just look at one side of the situation. Because if we, as a community, put someone to represent us, and somehow we share from inside of us whatever that individual is doing. You may say, oh, I didn't vote to that person. I didn't agree with that person. Yeah, but we are talking about the collective consciousness. And so we cannot make an analysis just based on one individual when we talk about society, because we are immersed in this society as we are inside of a swimming pool. Any rip that someone do in the corner of the pool, we affect us. And we cannot put ourselves outside of the pool. We are inside of the pool, so we are part of that situation as well. Even if you are actively action or not. So if I agree that this pressure, so the society needs to move on. Progress needs to happen. And the way I like to see that is that it's like when we clean our houses, okay? So you make a decision to clean your house, physical house, okay? I'm not talking about our mind, you know? So what happened? In the moment that we are cleaning our house, there is dust everywhere. Furniture is, yeah, I hope you move your furniture away. If you don't, so it's better go there and do it, because if you don't do that, the time that you're gonna do is gonna be pretty dirty, right? So that moment to clean your house, it is a mess. It's not fun. And you that are cleaning, you also feel that, you know, it's too hot, if there is no AC, if there is no fan, you not feel in a easy situation. So we need to learn how to observe things from up above, okay? Open our mind and see that there is a someone that is in control. Of course, we are not saying here that some of the things that happen in our society, some of the decisions, some of those laws that is implemented is the right one. Only time will tell. Only time. And sometimes we are invited also to exercise this another virtue, patience, and do the best that we can, so we can come back, I hope, in the planet that is not more a planet of trial and expiation, but a planet of regeneration.
Thank you, Dan. So last comment here is come from our friend Flo Denise. She said, charity happens when our heart fills us with compassion.
True, agree, yes. And the challenge here is develop compassion. All this word is beautiful. And that's why Joanna de Anjos is so important in the analysis of those words. Everything is connected to the development of the sentiment, to how you express yourself. And I completely agree. Develop compassion, gratitude, right? And Joanna de Anjos has a book that she called, that it's entitled The Psychology of Gratitude, I think. Psychology that is all about gratitude. And I was amazed because we did this study here, Kirsten did the study here in the Spirit Society of Baltimore, and I was, oh my goodness, can you write a book only about gratitude? Is, you know, because if I think about gratitude, probably I could not even write a line, you know, gratitude is gratitude, that's it. But she elaborated very well on this topic of be grateful, you know.
Excellent. So Abigail say, thank you, Daniel, and the Spiritist Society of Bournemouth. May God bless you all. I'm going to ask Lawrence to put a leaflet up to invite you all for an event that will happen on the 18th of April. It's our British Union Spiritist Society celebrating 160 years of the Medium's book, and the speaker is Gioca Daledone, and the time is 11 o'clock a.m. UK time. So once more, 160 years of the Medium's book by Allan Kardec. It's an event organized by the British Union for Spiritist Societies, 11 o'clock a.m., 18th of April. Our next speaker, our next event is going to be on the 23rd of April, and we will have with us Josara Kornegog, and she will be talking about spiritual influences, and that is on the 23rd of April, our next Spiritist night. Daniel and Lawrence, before we actually go to the closing prayer, is there any close remarks you'd like to make?
No, I sat here thoroughly engrossed. Thank you very much, Daniel. Very, very interesting. There was a lot in there to take away. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Laurie. And it was very nice to be here. Thank you, our friends from UK. We here in the US, of course, we share the same acronym in our Spirit Society. We are work from the SSB, the Spirit Society of Baltimore, and Fabricio and the other friends over there in the Spirit Society of, I'm sorry, but I don't want to mispronounce. Say again, Fabricio?
Bournemouth.
Bournemouth, yes. So, and it was very good to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. As we mentioned in the beginning, this topic is a topic that doesn't end here. I would like to invite you to participate in the study of the series of Joanna de Anjos that your group, your friends from UK has promoted. And I have the pleasure to participate in one of those studies, and it's very good. I completely suggest that if you have time, please do so. And I was very happy to see that Gioca Daledone is still over there, because I met him like many years ago, probably 15, 20 years ago. And I'm happy that he's going to speak in the event. Thank you, Fabricio. Thank you, Laurie. And
Pleasure.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for the talk tonight. I would like to say thank you to every one of you that have been watching us and listening to us. And I hope to see you in 2 weeks' time. Have a good night. Bye-bye for now.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.